All right, we're here with specialist promotable Turcios from the great state of Texas. Talk about how awesome you're doing, and how I like to start these things off is just tell me a little bit about your Guard story, how you arrived to be a member of the Texas Army National Guard Recruiting Battalion.
Sure. Good morning, Command Sergeant Major. Thank you for having me. So my God story is a little bit funny. The recruiters came to the school that I was working at to recruit students, and they recruited me. So I was working as a librarian in one of the schools that I now recruit out of.
Wow.
I was prior service, active duty Army. So I think I was a pretty easy recruit for them.
Well, there's a message for recruiters right there.
Yes, yeah, there's teachers that are interested as well. I had missed my uniform, so when they came to talk to me, I was all in. I was like, where do you want me? Where do you want me to sign? Where do you need me to go? Let's go. So I was very excited to come back in and serve.
That's awesome. So you got in, and then how did you end up in recruiting?
So my plan was to go state OCS, continue teaching, and do M-Day 1 week in a month National Guard. When I came in for a second interview with the recruiters, they actually, it was Mass Sergeant Ray, who's been he was the top recruiter the year he recruited me for the state of Texas. He won the Directors 54 for the nation. And then he won this year as Team NCOIC. So he actually recruited me for recruiting. I came in for an interview and he was like, well, how married to your civilian job are you? And I was like, well, I'll divorce that thing for something better. I mean, what are you talking about? So they actually recruited me. Basically, I came out of basic. I had to go back to basic training again because I had been out for the 5-year grace period. So I had to go back to basic training. And when I came back right after training, I came straight into an ADOS position recruiting.
Well, your accent doesn't sound like from Texas.
No, Command Sergeant Major, not at all.
You're from Maine originally?
Yes, I am.
So
like way up on the Canadian border. It's like me, river, Canada.
So even with that accent, you've been doing very well. So where are you at for the year for enlistments?
I have 20, Command Sergeant Major.
And you guys start your year in September?
Yes, Command Sergeant Major.
All right. You can call me Dave. That's fine. You probably won't want to, but you can.
It seems unnatural.
So 20 enlistments year to date is really a big deal. And because I haven't heard of anybody being at that point so far this year, because it is January. So you're having a very good year. So this is kind of a goofy question, but you've been around recruiting for a little bit. So you've been around other recruiters. So
kind of. I recruit very rural and my team is about 2.5 hours away.
Okay. Well, I'll just ask this question anyway. You're being very successful. Why do you think other recruiters are not as successful?
That's I would say that I'm very invested in each one of the people that I recruit. It's I don't look at them as numbers that I have to knock off and send up to command. I treat each one of them as a person who's making a very big, important decision. And I don't always see that in recruiting. I see it as check one off, move on to the next, check one off, move on to the next. And I think that reflects on the back end for recruiters. So there may be recruiters that were successful their first year who are really struggling now. And I think it has to do with that mentality of on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one, and treating them like it's just a check mark.
So getting very invested in individuals obviously has payoff, and that they feel like they want to bring other people to you. So how much of your business is, referrals?
Right now, for the past several months, honestly, it's been referral after referral. I have hardly done any active recruiting. I haven't had the time because I'm working one person after the next, and they've all been referrals.
So some of these questions might not be pertinent like right now, but I think it's important. So you're out in the East Texas, or in the middle of nowhere type
Yeah.
area.
Boonies.
So what have you done to develop that area? What is your approach to getting known and having people understand that you're the person to talk to about these opportunities?
I don't like to be very imposing. I like to build a bond with my guidance counselors and with my students before I go in and start trying to even recruit anybody. I like to build a foundation and a presence. I like to be supportive of the students and the events that they have going on. I have a very large area. The majority of my schools are very small. I mean, you talking like senior classes with 10 kids in it. So being actively involved in my communities and in my schools has made me a familiar and comfortable face that they do feel comfortable coming up and talking to me and asking questions. I also am not, I'm not a car salesman, right? It's a very big decision, joining the military. So sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay. I don't make anyone feel like just because I'm providing them information that they owe me something. My teachers see that, the guidance counselors see that, the students see that. I don't harass. I'm not trying to sell a car warranty to them like, hey, I talked to you for 5 minutes in the cafeteria. You owe me your life now, right? I'm not, I don't bug when I recruit, and I genuinely, like showing up to those events just to be there to support the students, to support the schools that I'm a part of. I don't use those events as recruiting tools. On the back end, sure, that's how it plays out, right? But I use them as a means to be a part of my community. That has been huge for me.
So what kind of events are you talking about? Are you talking about the sporting events and community events? Like give me an idea of some of those things that you attend.
Mostly sporting events, because we're very rural. Sporting events are huge for the students out here. Their basketball games, their football games, everything is centered around those sporting events. They mean a lot to them. So when I get to come out and bring some goodies or whatever, bring a thing of Gatorades or whatnot, just to bring it to them, and then I don't ask for anything in return, they love that. So it means a lot to them.
Well, I think that's a couple key points there. Is one, that especially in rural communities, the school is the center of gravity of the community.
Yes.
And just showing up, if it's a big deal to them, you're part of the school community.
Yes.
And something that recruiters do struggle with is, I'm going to give you something, but I'm not asking for something.
Yes.
Like I'm coming out because I want to get involved in this community. And I think that's a really big deal for us as the National Guard, being a community-based organization, is, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm not these other people that are just rolling through.
Yeah.
So recruiters listening, that one's going to be on the test, right? So I think that's really good. So just kind of how right now your battle rhythm is putting a lot of people in, but during normal times, like daily and weekly prospecting accountability, what do you do to make sure, you know, that you're talking to enough people or doing enough activities?
Right now, that's been a struggle just because I'm rolling on referrals right now. But before building up to that point where I'm at now, a large part of my access came from doing ASVAB interpretations. So I would get with my guidance counselors and set up coming into the classroom to interpret the ASVAB results for the students, because the ASVAB, you know, it's not a binary test. There's no pass or fail. It's not like coming into a math test where you get, you know, exactly what you scored and how well you did. The ASVAB has multiple different scores, and a lot of times these students have no idea what those scores mean. So when I come in and I do the ASVAB career exploration program, it's not just geared towards military. It customizes and curates a list of jobs and careers based on their strengths and weaknesses on their ASVAB scores. So I go in and interpret their ASVAB scores. I help set them up on this path of success, whether they're interested in college, trade schools, the military, or whatnot. I always say, you know, the military isn't for everybody. College isn't for everybody. Trade schools aren't for everybody. Being a hobo isn't for everybody, but there's something specifically for each one of those students in that classroom. And that program helps set them up in a way that they're starting to look at what they're interested in. It also gives me an idea of their scores, so I can see who got a 31 and who didn't. They get eyes on me. They're able to communicate with me and talk to me about setting themselves up for success and how to use that ASVAB as a tool to get where they want to go.
Well, the ASVAB interp is the best school entry vehicle.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
it is.
because we get
And guidance counselors love it.
So I like that one. And the interp is the important thing.
Yes.
Not the proctor, the interp.
Right. Yes, the interp post.
Well, what other kind of prospecting activities do you do on a regular basis, would you say?
I do, I also do classroom presentations. So I have a slideshow that I utilize that I discuss God benefits. I always grab a hometown recruit or two that I take with me to my classrooms. So my RSP program that I run here is very successful. I'm the only recruiter that I know of that actually runs their own drill. So all of my recruits drill with me once a month, and I'm the NCOIC of my specific armory and my drill, right? Which is a huge responsibility and quite a big deal for a specialist. But that RSP program that I run is very successful, and my recruits always want to do stuff with me. They're always asking, hey, can I go to that next college fair with you? Hey, the next time you're doing a classroom presentation, if you're at my school, can you call me down from the office? So I utilize my recruits that have been to basic training and are now seniors, or I utilize my recruits who have just come back from basic and AIT that are really excited to talk about their experience. So I get students that are still in school and or have just graduated. So it's a peer-to-peer interaction when I do classroom presentations, when I do lunchroom displays, when I do college career fairs. I never hit those things by myself. Even though I'm the only recruiter in my area for the GOD, I will grab my own soldiers, my own recruits, and take them with me.
Well, there's some good stuff to grab onto there, like on the back end of what you said is, I just think we talk to more people if we got somebody with us, no matter what
Yes.
we're doing, because
Yes.
it's hard to be a lone ranger. And
Yes, it is.
I mean, we get rejection quite a bit. And the idea of using your recruits, so they get an opportunity to say, hey, this is what my experience was. They know them.
Yeah.
And I think that RSP model is kind of a soapbox thing for me is our job is to make sure they meet the drill sergeant. We're not going to make them Audie Murphy. We got to get them
Right.
to have that meeting, and then the drill sergeant's going to turn them into a soldier. That's the
Yes.
design anyway.
Yes.
So that's kind of a lesson learned that, you know, leaders and recruiters out there, that maybe if our RSPs weren't so big and they were more pared down to the individual recruiter, it's working in this circumstance. So there's some good stuff there.
It is. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm not a drill sergeant. It's not my job to turn you into a soldier. It's my job to familiarize you with the concepts that are going to get thrown at you while you're at training, so that you can be as successful as possible, so that you can show up and show out. And I tell them that National Guard soldiers consistently win Soldier of the Cycle, Soldier of the Month, you know, the basic training soldier of their company, or so on, because of the RSP, the Recruit Sustainment Program. I love taking the opportunity to train them and prepare them for basic training, so they can go in with a lot more confidence than their peers. So they can go in with some kind of background knowledge that will be useful to them. I do, I actually bought the Warrior Task and Hand Drill, battle drill books that we utilize. And I'll pull training out of those and conduct it at drill. Like we did, sorry, we did BD6, Battle Drill 6, which is room clearing. And I did 4 iterations of BD6 at one of my most recent drills. The first iteration was a walkthrough. I had them in 4-man stacks, so they know where their weapon goes, muzzle awareness, how to walk, which section each person has when they enter the room. The second iteration, we did a full speed. The third iteration, I introduced OP4, opposing forces. And the fourth iteration, I had OP4 and hostages. So, oh, I forgot to say in the beginning, I also armed each one of them with Nerf guns. So they all had a Nerf gun, but they couldn't just come into the room, you know, guns blazing. They had to be tactical. They had to be strategic, because if they killed my hostage, then they failed. So I taught them how to do room clearing in a fun environment that was also very tactical, very appropriate to Army standard, to Army regulation. And they're going to be able to take that to basic training and use it. So when drill sergeant is asking, hey, who wants to go first? My recruits are going to raise their hand and be like, hey, you know what? I'll do it. I'll volunteer. And they're going to show up and show out and be the best. I never advise them to be quiet and hang in the background, which is what almost everybody says, is just get through basic training, be quiet, don't be seen, don't be heard. I tell them all the time, I'm like, you get to go through it one time. You have one chance to go through training for the world's greatest military. Take advantage of that. be bigger than everybody else. Show up and be loud, take charge, be a leader. Don't come back and say, yeah, I hung out in the back the whole time. So that's a huge part of my drill, is kind of instilling that confidence in them, to want to be those kind of soldiers that stand out and are not just mediocre. But yeah, and then I add fun elements in my drill, like Nerf guns. We do ruck marches where I show them how to do a lace report. I pick squad leaders. We do react to contact. So we do indirect fire. We do direct fire drills. And then they have to react to that, and they have to get lace reports, liquid ammo, casualty equipment. They're learning things that they're going to have to do in basic training. And now they're just going to go into it with a whole lot more confidence and a whole lot more knowledge than the rest of their peers. And they love it. They respond really well to the training. They have so much fun, while also learning something very useful. And then they go and tell all their friends about it at school. Like, hey, guess what I did this weekend at drill? And then everybody wants to be a part of it.
Yeah, you make it a big deal because it is a big deal. And then they get to, they're getting the experience that they bought. That's a big deal.
Yes, and not just sitting in a classroom. They sit in classrooms all the time. So for them to come to drill, they don't want to sit in a classroom and have death by PowerPoint. They want to do something fun. They want to climb around in the mud. They want to do ropes courses. So I organize my drill to give them that, to kind of feed that want that they have, that excitement that they have. When these students join the military, when they join the National Guard and they come to drill, they're excited and they expect to do something along those lines. They want to do soldier stuff. So I give them soldier stuff to do.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. I want to switch gears a little bit here. So you're getting referrals and you're doing your recruiting activities, you're setting up interviews. So how do you approach the interview and getting to closing on someone so we can move forward? What's that look like for you?
A lot of listening on my part, a lot less talking than what I've seen from other recruiters. I don't go in with a laundry list of benefits, right? If I have a student who's not interested in going to college, they already have a job lined up, let's say the pipeline, I'm not going to waste his or her time or my time going into all the college benefits that we have, right? I listen to what it is that they're interested in, what their goals are, what they want to accomplish. And then I go into how the National Guard can help get them there. When I'm talking to them, I've said before that everybody wants to be successful. I've never talked to a student or been in a classroom presentation where they've been like, man, I can't wait to graduate and fail. Nobody has said that ever. Everybody wants to be successful. Ideally, you want to be successful doing something you enjoy. We all need to make money. So the idea is getting to understand the applicant that I'm working with and what it is that they're trying, where they're trying to go and how the National Guard can get them there. So it's a lot of listening to them and figuring out what their goals are, what their dreams are, what they want to accomplish, and helping them get that.
So when you pair those goals with what we have to offer, what are you doing to get them to yes? Is it laying those two things out and just asking the question, or what's your approach to it?
Yes, basically, I let them know that they don't owe me anything. If, they're sitting in this chair, they want to get information, then I'm here to provide that information. I let them know that I'm a vessel for their success, that I want what they want. So whether that's joining the National Guard or not, I have spent interviews where I have helped a student go get their GED, and they decided they didn't want to join the National Guard at that time. But they came back to me about 5 months later and said, you know, I really appreciate you doing that for me. And where I'm at now, I want to join. So I don't close in a way that makes them feel like they have to join or they have to say yes, right? By having that approach, I get a lot more yeses because they don't feel pressured into it. So I'll end a interview with, you know, is this something you want to move forward with? Let's go, let's roll. Or is this something, you know, where's your head at? What are you thinking? Do you need more time with it? I make it very low pressure. I don't twist anyone's arm into joining. I don't beg them to join. I take a lot of pride in my uniform and the Army National Guard organization, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. So I'm not going to beg anyone to join this organization because it's a privilege to be a part of it. And if they want to be a part of that, then I'm all in. Let's move.
Well, something that maybe you haven't thought about that other recruiters that listen to this can pick up on it is that you're not projecting any kind of need or desperation.
Yeah, right, correct.
It is, I have it. If you want it, that's awesome, and we're going to do this. But if you don't, that's okay.
So cool.
And I'm, you know, the check's going to come in on the 1st and the 15th. If you don't do this. So I think that is something that people can grab onto and say, but the more important thing that you said there that I just want to make sure people get it, having pride in the organization, being a believer in the organization. You can't pretend to be a true believer. You either are or you're not. And the fact that you are makes a big difference in your success.
Okay.
So we got someone that is interviewed. This meeting's telling me I got about 10 minutes left. And they're ready to do this. So on the processing side, how does that work for you? What is your objective there?
I don't like to overload, but I like to get done as much as I can. So I'll say, hey, do you want to start this right now? My time I dedicated to you. So I've got all the time to get started. And then I'll go right into building the packet with them. Sometimes if they need to go somewhere, I send the application home with them and I let them know, hey, you know, it takes about a day or two to complete. If you have any questions, holler at me, and I'll gladly walk you through it. They always finish the application by the next day, and then they come in, bring me the application. I do their fingerprints after I do another interview with them based off of their application. I do a really good job vetting. You know, I'm trying to recruit soldiers for the Army National Guard, not just bodies, right? So I do a good job vetting. I go through that application with them. The next thing that I do is their fingerprints. So now recruiters have to do all the fingerprints ahead of time. So I make sure to knock that out because that takes a few days for them to come back. In those few days, while I'm waiting on their fingerprints, I build their entire electronic packet while communicating with them throughout the process and making sure that they're still in it, that I'm not doing all this work for someone who's going to change their mind. I'm with them the whole way. It's not just oh, all right, I'll call you when I'm done, you know, and we'll figure it out then or so on. I'm very communicative throughout the process while I'm building their packet. I let them know where I'm at in the process. I'll be like, hey, I got your whole packet ready, waiting on a QC so we can get a date to go down to MEPS. So I think that's a big thing is communication, is letting them know where you are, keeping them excited. Like, hey, oh my gosh, we, you know, probably 2 more days and we'll get a date to go down. Like, how excited are you? And in that time, I also build a vacancy for them. with the job of their choice. So I go through jobs with them and make sure that we secure something before we even go to MEPS, so they know exactly what they're doing. And there's no surprises for them. Transparency is the word that I was looking for. I'm very transparent with them throughout the process.
Well, the key thing that you said, in my opinion, is the vetting, is to make sure that you're going to do work. And how far away from MEPS are you?
Yes, I'm 2.5 hours from.
So you're not going to take that 2.5-hour ride just to make that 2.5-hour ride so your boss can say, well, at least she's processing someone.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not wasting my time like that.
And you might not recognize it now because you haven't been around in recruiting that much, but that's a big deal to have that mindset. Is I can't make them qualified. They either are or they're not, and I'm going to make sure they are before I build a packet and drive 2.5 hours and all of those things. So
for them to change their mind and be like, you know what, I'm not sure about it. Like, oh my gosh, I have yet to have that problem. I've heard other recruiters discuss having to drive and pick up their recruits in the middle of the night and or come get them off the MEPS floor. I've yet to have that problem because I take my time vetting them.
Okay, I want to make sure we get these last 2 questions in because I'm running out of time on this, but 2 things that I want to make sure that I hear from you on. And one is like, what do you think is your secret sauce to recruiting for you to have 20 enlistments and it's not the end of January? What is your secret sauce?
That's such a hard question for me to answer whenever anyone calls me to ask me what I'm doing. I can say that I honestly think it's the investment that I make in each one of my recruits. I make sure that they feel that I genuinely care about the decision that they're making and their pathway to success. And it's genuine. It's not, these students can read through bullshit pretty easy. They know when someone's being disingenuous. They know when an adult is trying to be something that they're not, or trying to act in a certain way. And I don't come off that way because I genuinely do care about each one of my recruits and their success. I put a lot of work into them in the beginning, the middle, and the end. There's never a time where I abandon them. And that shows through with my referrals. And each one of my recruits that brings me a family member or a friend or someone that they care about, they're showing me that they trust me, that they feel good about the job that I did, helping them on their journey to become a National Guardsman.
Well, I'll take a stab at it too, because we've just met. This is the first time I've ever talked to you, really, besides coordinating this. I do think it is being that believer that you're doing something really important for your future soldiers, and you're doing something really important for the organization.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I never want to hurt the organization on the back end by putting someone in who doesn't really want to be there, but felt pressured into making that decision, who's going to come into the God with an attitude of not wanting to be there. And they poison their companies like that. They poison their units like that. And recruiters do a disservice to not only that individual, but the organization as a whole. And it affects morale, and it affects readiness. It affects mission capability. And it affects everything. And I do take a lot of pride recruiting soldiers for the world's greatest fighting force. And a lot of that, like, there's a lot of history and heritage to be proud of with the National Guard. We're the descendants of the original American militiamen who toppled the king and built a nation. There's a lot of pride in that. And I think that that projects onto my recruits. They want to be a part of that heritage. They want to be a part of that organization. And that, I think, is a huge, huge part of my success, is projecting that.
Are you sure you're a specialist?
Yes, Sergeant Major.
Well, you're gonna be getting promoted soon. And the last question, and I don't know when I'm gonna run out of time for this meeting, but is what words of wisdom would you give to other recruiting and retention NCOs about just getting this sucker done, regardless of what the challenge is right now? What do they need to do to have the kind of success that you're having?
Recruiting is not a 9-to-5 job. You know, it's very much tailored to the applicants that you're working, their schedule. You have to be very flexible. You have to be very open. You can't do, well, it's 1700, I'm out. You know, you have to be able to build a schedule that caters to these students, to the applicants that are looking to join the National Guard, because you can't get everything done within that block of time. And I'm not saying you have to come in at 9 and leave at, you know, 2100. You might come in later in the day because you have appointments later in the day. But you cannot treat recruiting like a 9-to-5 job, because it's not. And sometimes you're going to have to work Saturdays and Sundays. I'm no stranger to to weekend work. So I work majority of my weekends. And not everyone has to do that. I choose to put that work in, you know. But you're gonna have to do it sometimes. You're gonna have to come in on a Saturday and have that interview with that mom and dad who work Monday through Friday. So I think that's what it is not treating it like a generic job, because it's not.
Well, that's good stuff. And I think there's a lot of good stuff here. And I appreciate you doing this. And I'm certain that you're going to continue to be successful with that attitude that you